All right, and we are live. Welcome, everybody. My name is Ado Kukic. I'm the Director of DevRel here at Sourcegraph, and we are tuning in from Montreal, Canada. We are at a company-wide offsite this week. We're trying to pin down Quinn and Beyang to join us for this live stream. But in the meantime, I just wanted to drop by, welcome everybody, see where everybody's tuning in from, and kind of kick us off as we get started sharing some exciting updates over the last month with what's changed with Cody, some of the new features, and plenty of cool demos that we're hacking away at here in Montreal at the offsite, as well as stuff that's coming down the pipeline. While we wait, where is everybody tuning in from? Like I said, I'm based out of Montreal, or I'm based out of Las Vegas, but we are in Montreal this week. And with me in the background, I do have Justin helping with the chat. So hey, say hi to Justin as well. All right, so we got a couple people commenting. Canary Islands, welcome Tino. Singapore, Greece, South Germany, sunny England. Is that sarcasm, Kinlo? Or is it a sunny day today? Norway, Romania. Awesome. So good to see everybody tuning in. All right, and don't forget to ask any additional questions. I know when you register for this call, we asked you to kind of pre-submit questions, and we have a bunch of them queued up. But in the meantime, if there's anything else that comes to mind as we are having this discussion, or anything else you'd like to learn about Cody or Sourcegraph, please feel free to ask in the chat, and we'll answer as many as we can. In the meantime, while we wait, why don't I share my screen and show some of the latest improvements in Cody. So I will pop my screen up on stage here, and sorry for the infinite mirror. Make that go away very, very quickly. And let's hide this one. So one of the coolest features that I think we've shipped over the last couple of weeks has been the Smart Apply feature. And that one, I am so excited about. It has completely changed the way that I personally write and generate code. And the way that that feature works is, let's say we are in this function here, and we are making this fetch call to the completion stream endpoints. So we're kind of talking to Cody via Sourcegraph. And you might notice here that I'm not doing any error handling for this fetch. I'm just assuming that anytime I send this fetch request that it's going to work from the get-go, and it might not. So let's ask Cody how it would handle error handling. So I can either highlight this code or just ask Cody in the chat to add error handling to this function. To this function, make it a try catch. So we'll send that request, and while that's running, we're still waiting. So we can see here that Cloud 3.5 Sonnet wrapped the entire call in a try catch, added error handling for us, and we could, if we wanted to, copy and paste this code, but then it didn't capture all of it. We could, copy and paste the relevant parts ourselves, but that's not a great experience. But we have this amazing new apply button that when we click it, it's going to go through our file, and whether the file is open or not, it doesn't matter, because it kind of keeps track of which file we're going to be making the update in. So we have this route.ts, meaning that it's going to look at source app API Cody and then /route.typescript. hitting that apply gave us a diff on all of the changes that it's going to make. And we can go through and accept and reject each change line by line, or we could just at the top here hit accept all if we're happy with the change altogether. And now we have a try catch block. We are handling our function implementation, or we're handling our call properly, so that in the event that the Cody API is down, or in the event that we get an unexpected error message, it's going to be handled and logged, and we'll send a proper response, proper status that an error occurred while processing the request, as opposed to not handling that exception. So I'll undo this change. So yeah, that's Smart Apply, and it works really, really well. And even if you wanted to like create a new piece of functionality, you could still have Smart Apply do that. And to show you how that works, let's say we are still working in this S0 directory, and let's say we wanted to create a new endpoint. Create a new endpoint that fetches GitHub issues, for example. We'll ask Cody to run that. Let's see, still waiting to see if Quinn Beyang join. It doesn't look like it. So let's go back into VS Code. And we can see here that I was using Claude 3.5 Sonnet. It gave me this functionality, and it is suggesting that we apply this in another route.ts file. So if we hit this apply button, it's actually going to create that new file for us in the source app API GitHub issues route.ts file. And actually, I think I might have already had this component, but still, Cody was able to discern that, hey, we have a relevant route, and you probably want to make some updates to it. So here's what I would change, and gave me that code. I hit apply, it opened it, applied the changes, and gave me the diff to work in. So that's one of the things that I'm really, really grateful for, and I think is a big game changer for developers wanting to operate in this new chat-oriented programming paradigm, where you're kind of relying on chatting as kind of the first way that you write code, or the first way you get solutions. So I'll hit accept there. And the next thing that I want to show is how you can quickly generate commit messages. And we've added this experimental feature a couple weeks ago as well, called generate commit message. Whereas in the past, you could have written a custom commit for you, but now we've integrated it directly into the VS Code source control. So we made these couple changes. We added error handling. We made some updates to getting the issues from GitHub. And I could type up the message, and I could type up the information on what the change was, or I can just hit generate diff message, and it's going to look through the change and explain what we did. And I think this was an earlier change that I had made, testing some new OpenAI functionality. So that's that. Let's see. So I just got a message that Quinn is on his way, a couple minutes out. So I think one last thing that we can cover before Quinn joins is our new model functionality. And if you're not aware, if you haven't heard, Cody got access to OpenAI's O1 Preview and O1 Mini models as well. They are in early access. We're still trying to figure out how to best roll these powerful new reasoning models out to as many Cody users as possible. So for now, when you get the latest version of Cody, you will see O1 Preview and O1 Mini in the dropdown. And if you don't have access, there will be a button to join the waitlist. You just click that, and we'll automatically log it. We'll log your email, your user account. And as soon as we can get you access, hopefully in the next couple of days, you'll get an email saying that you are off the waitlist and good to go to try out O1 Preview and O1 Mini. So those are some of the things that I'm really excited about. And there is Quinn Welcome, Quinn. Thank you so much for joining us. I was just stalling and showing some of the awesome functionality that we shipped recently into Cody.
Yeah, we've been busy, and thanks everyone for sending in your feedback and bug reports and PRs. And thanks for joining.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have a good crowd. We have a ton of questions, and I would say we just kind of jump into some of the questions, and um, when appropriate, I'm happy to share my screen again and show demos of the features and capabilities. And there's Beyang. I see him in the back. Hopefully, he could join us as well. So let's kick things off with our first question, and that is I like Cursor's Composer feature for AI coding. Cody Smart Apply is similar but more limited. Are there any plans for Cody to get a full composer-like UI?
Yes, and I saw David in the chat posted the link where I leaked it. We've got a little demo video, and I can share my screen and show a little bit of that off. People want
That
that?
would be amazing. Yeah, let's do
All
it.
right, cool. So let me pull it up. Here we go. All right. And here we go. All right. So here, I'll kind of, show it off. So it's some compose mode. This is very early, and you can expect plenty of stuff to change. But the idea is you tell it what's your working set of files, and that is the set of files you can make edits in. So here I've got these two files, and a really common reason why you want to have a multi-file edit is because you want to add some new behavior and update the test. So that's what I'm doing in this case. It's a simple FizzBuzz example. So I'm saying add a new case and add a test case to it too. And so, goes and makes the edit, and you can see it added the case there and it updated the test as well. And then you see this little thing on the left. Okay, here are the edits I will make. And you can look at the changes you can accept and reject each of them. And that is it. It's very early, as you can see, but it builds on our inline edits, which is super, super popular. Smart apply, which also is really popular. And so everything is building on it. And there's, the really cool thing about multi-file edits is it turns out the human giving a little bit of input as to what their working set of files is, that takes away a part of like the agent process where there's actually a lot of mistakes that the AI can make. And so this is just this principle of if the human can give Cody a little bit of input, spend 30 seconds giving a little bit of input, then Cody is going to be able to do something much better that can save you 30 minutes or an hour. So, it's not saying you can just press a button and you don't have to work that day, but you're getting massive leverage on your time. So, what do people think about that? Would love to hear, thoughts and feedback in the chat or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see if there's any follow-up questions there. I'm personally very, very excited for that functionality, just kind of taking chat-oriented programming to a whole new level. So you've seen it here first. Cody Compose, if you will, is will be dropping hopefully soon. And okay, let's jump to our next question. And if you want to see more, if you have any questions, please post them in the chat. The next question that we have is, do you have any Confluence providers examples? And a follow-up to that, could we have a right-click mermaid diagram on the code?
Yeah, so we have the experimental support for at mentioning things in Confluence, at mentioning pages in Confluence. So we would love to hear how that's going for you. That's the kind of thing that, lets you mention a specific Confluence page that might have your style guide or some info about design docs. One thing that we're working on is how do we make it so that's used more? And there's two ways we can do it. One is we could try to automatically figure out when to pull in something with Confluence or all these other data sources like linear GitHub issues. That I think we'll do that eventually, but for now, we're using the prompt library to make it so that someone at your company can say, "Hey, here's a great prompt for I don't know, writing a test using our style in this repo," and that prompt will be able to mention something on Confluence. So that's a way where one person at a company can have a big impact and have everyone using this without each person needing to kind of intentionally use it. So look out for that coming soon. Hey, Beyang, can you mute? Beyang and I are in the same room. Thank you. And then right-click mermaid diagram on the code. That sounds awesome. I think that's something that a prompt in the prompt library could probably do pretty well. If you get a good prompt that works well for making a mermaid diagram, then save that as a prompt in your prompt library, and your team members will be able to use it if you're in a company. We do want to extend prompts so that it's not just some text prompt. It's also going to include at mentions. And then we wanted to actually support like executing code or taking other steps based on that. And, stay tuned for that.
Yeah, very exciting. And I shared a how to generate mermaid diagrams with Cody, written by one of our guest authors earlier this year. So if you wanna check it out, I would highly encourage you to create a prompt, play around with it, and that would be my recommendation for now as well. And we do have Beyond joining us as well. I think both of the co-founders were super busy hacking. Like I said, we're at the hackathon this week and lost track of time. So we're working hard to ship some more awesome features. So welcome, Beyond. We're just going through some of the community questions now. Cool. So jumping into our next question. I love and use Cody every day. I'm using Cody to power my own journey into software development. I'm curious to know if multimodal support is on the roadmap.
Yeah, Beyond, you want to share what Olaf is working on?
Yeah, we have someone hacking on multimodal support at this hackathon. So the idea is to be able to kind of like paste the image in and use models that have the ability to reference images as well as text. So hopefully by the end of the week, we'll have something at least in a proof of concept phase that we can share out and that folks can play around with.
Awesome. Really, really looking forward to that. So yes, multimodal support is coming. The next question, is there a plan to improve Cody's long-term memory so that it can perform intermediate coding steps in a more structured manner without requiring explicit instructions?
I'll take this one as well. Yes, so we're integrating a system that records basically like all the relevant actions that you take when you're coding or trying to build a feature. So for now, it records all the actions in the editor, and that is made available as a context source for the different features. So it will be available for both chat and completions in the future. And I think longer term, we want to extend that history to include not just actions that you take in your editor, but also actions that you take elsewhere and other developer tools that might be relevant, like your issue tracker or chat or production logs.
Very interesting. Excited for that, and also, I'm curious to see how with the new reasoning models like O1 Preview and O1 Mini, if long-term memory uh, will be kind of beneficial, or if we'll be able to just give it enough information and just have the model reason on its own and figure out what the best course of action is based on the input. Okay, next question here is how many lines of code can Cody have max in context in one message?
I think our current limit is, I want to say like 30,000 tokens or something like that. And so that's about 120 kilobytes. So how many lines of code does that work out to? Like an average line of code is what, like 20 bytes or something like that? So 6,000 lines of code. Did I do the math right? 60,000 lines of code. It's either 6,000 or 60,000. 6,000 lines
I
of
would say
code.
6,000,
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
closer.
approximately.
And I did just drop in the comments a link to all of our token limits for each model. That depending on which model you're using, the context length might be slightly different. So check out the docs if you're curious about the difference between the different models. I think for Cloud 3.5 Sonnet, we have the largest supported model at the moment.
Out of curiosity, I have a question about whether people would want to use the full context window of the model if we made that available. Right now, one of the things that is the reason for why we restrict the context window is we have abuse detecting to deter people from like abusing our API to get access to the underlying LLM. And because we charge a fixed price per month, we have to have that in place. Otherwise, fraudulent use would become like a major issue for us. But I'm just wondering, like we've considered doing more like usage-based pricing in the past. So if people had the option of having some tier of Cody where you get like a certain amount of tokens accounted for free, but if you go over that limit, it's like usage-based after that. With a strong notification in the UI illustrating that you're doing that. Would that be something that people are interested in? Like, are you currently running up into token limits? Do you want to extend the token context, and you're willing to kind of like pay the underlying inference cost in order to do that? If you are, please drop a note in the chat, or let us know otherwise.
Yeah, that's a really good point. In my personal experience, I use Cody every single day, and I very, very, very rarely run into a token limit being the issue. So and we're always reevaluating, increasing the token limits and playing around to make sure that we can give you the most optimal experience that gets you the answer as quickly as possible, uses the least amount of context, and gets the most accurate. Sweet. Maybe the next question we can give to Quinn. What does the roadmap for better context selection, both manual and automatic, look like? When will enterprise customers get a dynamic model selection like pro users have today?
Yeah, two really good questions on better context selection. We are always improving this under the hood. So, all the time, every single update, and now even on the back end, we're improving this. And we got a lot of evals running, a lot of new context methods running. We have new embeddings models being used all the time. So that is always getting better on the automatic side. There's a way that it's going to take a big leap forward, which is when we'll actually have a copy of your repo on our site. You authorize, click through your GitHub account and authorize sourcegraph.com to have your repo. That will let us do a lot more. That will let us do the kind of stuff that we can do for our enterprise customers that have a full Sourcegraph instance right now. And that includes like all of the search indexing, all the code graph indexing, like definitions and references. And we're bringing that to make it available to everyone. We're working very hard on that. And I don't have an ETA, but it's on the order of months. So that's a big improvement. Manual context selection. This is open CTX, and we got a ton of context providers. What we're finding is that people want it to be more automatic. And again, with the Confluence example, we can either make it automatic as in Magic, or we can make it automatic where someone has made a prompt that uses an external piece of context. Then how can more people use that prompt? And so we're taking that approach, which is going to be less likely to be like this black box. It's hard to understand why it worked or not. So a lot of stuff is getting better on context. Please keep sending your feedback on that. On the dynamic model selection, we do have a EAP early access program for our enterprise customers to get model selection. And for most enterprise customers, this means they're going to get all of the same models that pro users have, which is a ton. Gemini, Claude, OpenAI, Mixtral, a ton. This is an EAP, so if you want it and you're an enterprise customer, then ask your admin to go and look into it, and we'll drop a link to the docs about that. we plan to make this just available in all enterprise in the next couple of months.
Right on. Super, super exciting. The next question, and I'm super excited for this one myself. What is the future for Cody AI APIs, CLIs that we can use to integrate with our other developer tooling, code reviews, CI jobs, and so on?
I love this one too. We have the Cody CLI, and we are making that, just a normal HTTP API, but we've seen so many customers use it in ways that are really cool. Like we have one really big customer in Europe that has this big migration that was going to take 2 years, and they had earmarked like 100 different devs on it. They have to update around 30,000 places in their code, and they're using the Cody CLI to go and automate the changes. And they found that 60% of the changes that Cody makes are correct and can be merged. And this is not some like massive migration where each one takes so much work. The annoying thing is that every big dev team has a bunch of these that are kind of mindless, but they're massive, and it requires so many different people. It causes so much churn. So they're using the Cody CLI to help with that. We see it a lot of other cases helping with these big migrations, and we're making that we're gonna make that really smooth in the product, and actually connect that to our batch changes product, which lets you make a PR to hundreds or thousands of repos all at once. And we designed that originally working with Netflix, which was already doing this at scale, and they're a customer of ours. So really excited about that. The other side is code review. And we have a lot of our big customers that have these code review tools where they use Cody like in GitLab CI or GitHub Actions, and it'll go post PR comments based on the diff. There's a lot more stuff too that we're going to do to make that easy in our API, and then to make that first class, because you really want to be able to, as a dev, before you've even pushed up a PR, get instant feedback based on your coding standards at your company as to how good is your diff, and you want that in your editor. You fix it in your editor, and then when you push it up, you want that same view. You want the same standards being applied. So we see our customers just doing a ton of stuff with the API and CLI that we have already, but we want to productize these. So keep sending us your use cases, what's painful, what you want to do with it. This is really, really, really important for us. And so far, we've differentiated on context. And in the future, I think that this ability to use Cody programmatically will be another really big differentiator for us.
Absolutely. And I got to hacking this week in Montreal with the Cody REST API, and it has been a joy to use. And I think there's so many more use cases that will unlock. So definitely stay tuned for more docs and information on that, because it's coming and it's looking really, really promising. Cool. And then we have one more pre-submitted question, and then we'll get to the live questions. And this one is, do you have any intentions of making Cody a standalone application, maybe even a mobile app perhaps?
We were talking about it as a hack project. Haven't heard that much. We do want to make Cody Web faster. So, one of the things is we want you to be able to just go to cody.dev and then have like instant loading, really simple chat. But if you've got things where, hey, you want a mobile app to do this for you, then please let us know. But in a vacuum, we're not prioritizing it that highly.
I think
By standalone, do you mean like a native application or just like web application? Because you can go to sourcegraph.com/Cody/chat, and that's kind of like a Cody-oriented user experience currently.
I could also see this question meaning like having a standalone Cody IDE that's, not an extension.
Yeah, we don't plan to build our own IDE. I know there's a lot of others that are doing that. I think that's really cool. They're able to, really quickly try a bunch of features and see what sticks. And, a lot of great ones do stick. For us, we want to meet devs where they are. And the whole way that, this whole Cody Sourcegraph system works is we have a ton of enterprise customers, and they pay their devs a ton. They make a lot of money themselves. And so we earn a lot of money from them. And our job is not to make something that the like 1% of AI enthusiasts who try a new tool every week love. Our job is to make it so that in a given company, every last damn developer is absolutely loving Cody and it works for them. And this is, the most kind of early adopter dev in this big enterprise and the one who thinks they're never going to use AI. We got to win them over. That's our job. That's how we make money. That's how we are able to offer Cody free and everything like that. And that's just a different kind of mode. So, in a company, there's no way that a company is going to get every single one of their devs onto a given editor. It's so rare. Once you get above 50 devs, there's always going to be multiple editors being used. Maybe you have multiple languages and there's different editors that are special. It's kind of a religious thing for devs. So we will, always be something that's universal. And frankly, all the fragmentation benefits us because, we are the only one with this kind of features that can actually address every dev in a big enterprise.
Yeah, we want y'all to use whatever editors you prefer for whichever languages work best with that editor. And for all the devs in the world who use many different editors, we want them to continue using the best editor for their task. But for all of those people that use Sourcegraph and Cody for general code understanding questions.
Definitely. And in all of those editors, we want to give you a first-class Cody experience. So whether you're using VS Code, JetBrains, Emacs, Visual Studio, whatever it may be, we want to give you a consistent experience. And we're looking forward to bringing that to you. Cool. Let's jump into some of our live submitted questions, and we'll try to get to as many of these as possible. Alex J asks, what would you say is the optimal workflow for using Cody? Beyang, do you want to take this one? I feel like there is no optimal workflow, but a lot of it is personal choice. But what are your thoughts?
I can share, my personal workflow and then maybe some other patterns of workflow that we've seen before. So, personally, I like to use Command K a lot for adding code in line and then chat for kind of longer form compositions. Usually my chat usage is a combination of, having it write out a function, either with the context of the code base, or sometimes I just delete the context strip altogether if I just want a function that doesn't require any contextual knowledge. And then another big thing I use chat for is asking questions. So it's really helpful if I'm diving into an unfamiliar part of the code where I don't know what to search for necessarily. I can ask, a fuzzy question about, hey, which files are relevant to this particular task. And it's really helpful for zeroing in on the things that I need to go and read. I know other people, generally speaking, there's maybe two camps here. There's some people who love chat and love Command K. They're the more kind of explicit ways to invoke the language model. And other people are much more in the camp of autocomplete. They don't like having to explicitly request code generation, or they forget to do it. And they'd much rather just have the suggestions appear in line as they're typing. So those are probably the two dominant modalities in my mind. My own behavior pattern has shifted probably from autocomplete to more chat-oriented programming over the last year or so.
Nice. Yeah, I would say the same. Once we added the smart apply feature, I think it shifted me heavily towards chat being the primary driver, and then autocomplete is still great, still works really nicely, but I feel like using chat as the first step works really, really well. The next question we
By the way,
have.
you see walking behind me a bunch of the other devs here that work on Cody. So we're all
Nice.
here together and can't wait to get some more folks here from the community all together. We should have a Cody meetup sometime.
Absolutely. We'll plan it out. The next question we have is, when will we be able to use Cody with a self-hosted LLM to avoid sending data outside of corporate security boundaries?
We offer that now. We have a lot of big enterprise customers that use Cody with air-gapped LLMs or with things like Amazon Bedrock that are within their own VPC on some cloud provider. That's a hugely valuable thing. We put a ton of work into making it work well. And I am proud to say that there are customers and users of Cody from organizations that have nuclear weapons, that have other very sensitive kinds of materials, and we've been able to do that because of the self-hosted and air-gapped support.
Definitely, and yeah,
So
we
reach out to
support
us if you want that, enterprise.
for sure. And we support Azure, AWS Bedrock. If you're running fully offline locally via Olama, so we have a lot of different ways for you to access the underlying LLM for Cody.
Yeah, actually, there's one really funny thing about this. This idea of the horseshoe theory, like, given individuals' beliefs, you might think of like some people are crazy on one side and, there's a belief on the other side, but actually they meet. And so people that are on opposite ends that are crazy actually are more, similar to each other. And we kind of found this with self-hosted LLMs, where initially we built it because like we love Olama, we take the airplane flights, we have bad Wi-Fi sometimes, and also like the kind of privacy preserving aspect of Olama running on your device. And that got tons of people loving it and using it, and like so much buzz. Turns out that the biggest enterprises and government organizations also have that same need. It's not about privacy that they care about, but like intense security of the kind where when you go into their facilities, you have to check your devices at the door, and there's secure communications facilities. And so the requirements for both of those were actually very similar, and we had a head start. So we had some enterprise customers that were already starting to use our Olama support before we even had made that ready for the enterprise. So that's just one reason of why it's really important and valuable for us to have an awesome community, why we listen to you all so much, because you are ahead of the game and you are helping us build a great product for you and anticipate what these big enterprises need, because that's again how we make all this Cody free stuff available, and how we invest so much in Cody. So thanks for being a part of that.
Absolutely, and I think this next question is a great segue into that. What are the current limits for pro users who will be granted access to the new GPT models, OpenAI o1? And what are the future projections for these limits? How many messages per day? What context window size? And any other relevant info?
Hey, I'm back. I dropped for a sec.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, cool.
We got you.
All right, cool. Yeah, Nico, great question. I think you're asking about the OpenAI o1 models, and we have granted access to the first 100 users of Cody. First people on the wait list. They seem to be expanding the rate limits pretty quickly, but this is a different kind of model. So we're still learning like how best to use it in Cody and how should we adapt Cody to using it. We would love to be on that learning journey along with you. Please, we'll get you access and tell us how it goes, what kind of prompts work well, and then we'll iterate. You can just watch our PRs and we'll be making stuff out there. In general, though, we want to make it so that Cody has all the best models. That's another huge thing why people love Cody, that we have the newest best models. And we are the only company I'm aware of that gets access to the new best models from Anthropic, OpenAI, and Google and Mistral all in the same day, or before. So that's something I don't think any other Code AI tool can say.
Yeah, we definitely support all of the foundational models, and we try to bring them to you as quickly as possible with the o1 model. Like Quinn said, it is a different kind of model, and we've sent out the first wave of invites yesterday. Got a bunch of people off the wait list, and we'll be inviting more people today and tomorrow and every day from now on, and monitoring the usage, seeing the use cases, and hopefully we can bring it to everyone in the near future. Cool. The next question, are there any plans to increase token limits? I mostly care about Anthropic's related models, not so much the output, as I know that's quite expensive, but the input tokens and history related tokens from previous messages. And I think this kind of leads into um, having a longer context window would allow the user to have a longer history. Any plans to increase those limits or ways to handle that?
Yeah, how are we using the context is getting better, just finding better context to put in the window. We've updated and enlarged the windows several times over the last few months. So, we're regularly doing it. If you see something where like, oh, this is like really causing you a specific problem, then let us know. Sometimes people will get the wrong answer and they might assume it's because of a small context window, but usually that's not actually the problem. So, highlight those issues, let us know. More context is not always better. It makes it a lot slower, for one, even if you're not accounting for cost. And we're also experimenting with some upcoming models that have very large context windows that actually call for a completely different way of using context. Like putting your entire working set of your code base in and using context caching to quickly, reuse that. So, there's a lot to change here, and it's not just, size of context window on the fly.
Definitely. Yeah, so and like Quinn said, we do from time to time evaluate how people are using, are we hitting the limits? Would more context make sense? And we have increased I believe Sonnet 3.5 has the largest input window of any of our models right now. And if we see a need to increase it even further, I think we definitely would not be opposed to that. The next question comes from Vu, and they ask, can I ask about the plan to launch the Cody extension for Visual Studio? Any updates on that? Maybe Beyond, we could give you this one.
It's coming very soon. We're actively working on it. Actually, the engineer that's been working on it is sitting like 5 feet away from me. So yeah, stay tuned for that.
Awesome. Visual Studio support coming soon. There was one question about the dynamic model selection for enterprise customers, which we already discussed. If you want it, talk to your account manager, and we can definitely, we'll be rolling it out shortly, but definitely we can prioritize you there. And then this question, do you also plan on implementing the Cody Composer-like functionality for the IntelliJ IDEs?
So, our multi-file edit compose mode is still work in progress. So I demoed it in VS Code, but the way that it's built is not VS Code specific. And now, as you see with the new JetBrains chat UI in Cody, we are sharing, 95% of the code implementation. So I believe that everything we would do for Compose would be shared. But most importantly, with now this move to having the same UIs, we made a commitment to having the experience be the same among all the different editors, modulo the different kind of release schedules that are forced on us by marketplace approvals. Like VS Code you can just publish, but JetBrains, they got to approve.
Makes sense. And yeah, we are getting much closer to a unified Cody experience everywhere, whether you're on the web, in the IDE, or using the APIs. This question from Nico, regarding the pricing, I would rather pay $30 per month for a larger context window. Perhaps you could consider implementing some sort of throttling mechanism for those who exceed certain usage limits. So they want to give us more money.
Yeah, this goes back to, we would love to see where the small context window is actually hurting, and we're not seeing that a lot. It's not the case that putting the entire file in is necessarily going to give better context, because you want to pick out the most relevant parts of the file, and there might be other files. So I'm sure that there's some specific use cases where this would be better, but we're the reason why we cap the context window is not primarily due to cost. Cody Pro, Cody Free, it's not that expensive in the whole scheme of things for us to support, especially given the enterprise business we have. But we don't want it to be really slow, and we don't want it to be irrelevant. So I think rather than add another tier of Cody Pro, like a Cody Pro Premium, we would just try to solve it for every user. I think, you'd probably want that. So, please, again, send us your feedback on when you actually see the context window, the limitation that we put on it actually being a blocker.
Yeah, and
maybe
reach
if you
out.
could try asking the same thing in ChatGPT or Claude, where I think they have much more intense rate limits, but they do let you paste in maybe more at once without some of the summarization. Then that would also be really helpful, or through the API.
Yeah, and for any of this feedback, if you'd like to share it either in our community Discord or on the community forums, please follow up, and we definitely want to work with you on this to make sure that we're giving you the ideal experience. The next question, is there plans for making the generate unit tests and document code commands customizable? For example, making it use a specific unit test framework docstring format. Similarly, having a short hidden default pre-prompt for Python, use type hints when writing code, for example.
Yeah, this is the idea of the prompt library. And we found this from feedback from folks like you, where they would find that our generate unit tests, it worked well in some well-trodden paths like TypeScript or basic Python unit test, but if they had some specific requirements, it didn't. And they would actually just use custom commands or their own prompts. They'd ask Cody Chat to write a unit test. Often what people found is if you include, mention a file, like a test file that's kind of similar and has some of the same
I think we might have temporarily lost Quinn.
All right, I think I'm back.
Yep.
We have like 150 people all on this hotel Wi-Fi, and turns out my little travel router is straining under the weight too. Anyway, prompts right now, very basic. It's just some text you can put in, but we're making it so that a prompt can include specific context that you mentioned and can have a kind of action associated with it. So when you select it, doesn't exactly what you want. So that's and you can actually use Smart Apply and Chat right now to generate tests and too. So give that a try, or inline edit. The same thing under the hood. Let us know how that works.
Definitely, and for the follow-up question about the short hidden pre-prompt, we actually already have that. So if I share my screen here, in VS Code, in your settings, there is a Cody Chat pre-instruction field in your settings where you can actually add some additional information that will be used. But realize that this will be used every single time for all of the commands. So if you keep it kind of broad in general, you can definitely use this pre-instruction capability. Okay, so we have about 10 minutes left, and let's try to get a couple more questions answered. This one is, what is the long-term goal for Cody? Would Sourcegraph Cody in the future be open to developing a teacher mode of sorts? For example, expanding education of coding with AI personalized feedback.
That's an awesome thing. I actually heard of someone who put in that instruction that Ado just showed. Somebody tells Cody to not give the full answer, but to give some hints. And they found that was really helpful when they were learning a new language and wanted it to challenge them a little bit more. So that's very basic kind of teacher mode. But Cody is one of the things that we would love to see someone who actually is a teacher and is using this every day, go and teach with it during the day, and then go and submit some improvements at night to make it better for that. We would love to work with you on that. I think it's really interesting. And just reach out, go post an issue, or join our community Discord, and would love to hear your ideas there.
Definitely, and this could be a good use case for once we have the Cody REST API, if you wanted to build a Cody teacher mode for your own use cases, or even for something for the community, I think we would definitely love to see it. The next question here was in regards to supporting the Z editor, and I see that Beyang kind of answered it in the comments about, we could potentially, but at the moment don't have the bandwidth, but maybe one day we will. But to get to the next question from Mike, do you plan on integrating Anthropic's artifacts to automatically generate an artifact?
No plans to. We think Anthropic is awesome. Artifacts is awesome. No plans to right now, but if you think that'd be a great feature, then we'd absolutely welcome a PR for it.
Okay. And then from Brian, what safety protocols does Cody have in case AI becomes sentient? Beyond, do you want to answer this one?
None whatsoever for sentience. We're not. We think that there's very little chance of that. Basically, zero chance.
Zero chance. You heard it here. Awesome. And then we have one final question here. Have you guys considered adding DeepSeek, as you already have a relationship with DeepSeek for autocomplete for chat? It seems like a good model, especially for the price. The biggest issue is the tokens per second, and if they have good plans for the future, it is a good model to have along with 4.0, Sonnet, O1, and our other models.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'll chat with some folks internally to see if we can get that in line. I think there's a little bit of work in making a model kind of production ready. There's some like inference optimizations that are typically applied, but it's a good model, so it'd be potentially cool to support.
Very cool. And speaking of DeepSeek, we kind of chatted earlier about some of the improvements we made over the last month to Cody with Smart Apply and some of the changes to autocomplete, including the DeepSeek model. Byung, are you able to tell us a little more about the reason for change, like how DeepSeek has improved our autocomplete story, and any interesting findings there?
Yeah, so there's actually been significant improvements made to autocomplete that have sort of been like underneath the hood, so they're not super visible. Although maybe we should put out some content showcasing the examples of how it's gotten better, because it's gotten substantially better. But the short version is that we decided to switch autocomplete models after seeing some limitations in the model that we were using before, which was the StarCoder model in terms of its ability to integrate context. We still think StarCoder is a great model. It's super fast, and it's trained on permissively licensed code, which is great. But we did notice issues with some of the context that we're trying to inject into the autocomplete pipeline. It was sometimes ignoring that context, which was kind of like limiting the improvements we wanted to make to the experience of autocomplete. So we evaluated the field and we picked DeepSeek because it was the model that performed best in the evals, and not just the offline benchmarks. But we A/B tested this and found that it was the model that yielded the most improvements in product level metrics, such as like the acceptance rates of completions. It actually yielded like a 5% boost in acceptance rate, which is probably like the single biggest boost we've seen to that number due to one single change. But we're not stopping there. What we're doing now is we're fine tuning the model to be more context aware. So just specifically take advantage of the type of context that we're handing it. And we found that this further improves the model, and that should be rolling out soon.
Very exciting. And then I think we have time for just one more question. Have you guys added support for Claude Sonnet cache prompting, or plans to?
Not yet, but working on it. So one of the other vectors of improvement is, especially with like long context window models now, what we've found is that there's actually a good amount of value in like taking advantage of that longer context window by pre-caching more of the context that we provide. So This is supported through the Sonnet API. There's the Claude API. It's also supported through the Gemini API, and there's a couple other APIs that support this mechanism. And so it's still relatively early stages right now, but the results are promising enough that we probably will prioritize doing this.
Very cool. Looking forward to it. Yeah, and I think so that is all of the questions from the community. So far, like I mentioned, we are in Montreal this week at a company-wide hackathon. Everybody is hacking away at some really, really interesting projects that we hope to bring to our community over the next couple of weeks. As for final closing words, beyond Quinn, do you guys want to tell us about what projects you're working on or show off any of the cool stuff you've seen at the Montreal Hackathon so far?
Yeah, I'm working on context improvements at the moment. And so one of the things that we're doing is we're compiling a suite of benchmarks that showcase all the different use cases that you can use Cody Chat for currently. And that will help us internally make improvements to the chat quality, and also do a better job of explaining all the different use cases that are applicable when using Cody Chat. And as far as the coolest thing that I've seen so far, I just saw a project where we're adding kind of more like agentic reasoning and tool use to the context gathering process of Cody, and actually yield some nice improvements to filtering out noise and selecting highly relevant files in the process. So hopefully that'll be demoable by the end of the week as well.
Amazing stuff.
Quinn?
Yeah. So there's like bugs, there's like, improvements, and then there's new features. And we overall are spending a lot more time fixing bugs right now because we've heard the feedback that, features are good for the most part, but there's too many bugs in the experience. We need to smooth that out. So I am working on something personally to make it so you will never need to reload your VS Code or JetBrains editor again when config changes, or you sign in or sign out or lose internet connection temporarily, like I've done like 5 times during this live stream. And turns out that will improve a lot of quality things in the code. For example, in our end-to-end test, it let me remove every single case where we had a sleep. And a sleep in the end-to-end test is a very bad sign. So removing them is good. And what am I most excited about? Personally, I really, feature-wise want the kind of multi-file edit. I am using inline edits all the time, and it's magical. It's so fast, but it kind of sucks that it's only in one file. So that's my motivation for hacking on that.
Very, very excited. Exciting, and I can't wait to get the multi-file edit myself. It'll make chat-oriented programming so much easier and so much more fun. Well, Quinn, Beyang, thank you both so much for joining us today, answering all
Thanks,
of the
everyone.
questions. We do have a survey in the chat that Justin just shared. If you take the survey, we will send you a free hat, a cool Cody hat, just like the one that Quinn is wearing. It might not be white, but it'll be similar. And yeah, thank you all for joining us. We'll schedule more of these, and keep sending us your feedback in Discord, in the community forums, on Twitter. Reach out, and thank you. We're going to get back to another afternoon and evening of hacking. Thank you both again. And
thank you all.
Thank you to our community.
Happy
Thanks,
coding.
everyone. Take care.